Hey everyone, this is Art with Living Roots with another devotion in our Shelter and Grace series. Wanted to just share a story that took place, when did this happen? I think 2 days ago, 3 days ago, something like that. So we filter our water in our house, and next to our water is a power strip. I know that's not the smartest thing in the world now that I think about it, actually. But there's a power strip where we plug in the toaster and whatnot. And there was water all over the counter and in the power strip, so I unplugged it. And I kind of got on the kids because, you know, this can start a fire. It's a hazard. This is not good. I know we probably shouldn't have the power strip next to the water. Yeah. Anyways, so I was checking in on what kids were, were careless with the water. And none of them confessed or admitted to doing that. And so I just kind of sternly shared with them how they need to be careful with water. And they all said, okay. And later on that day, we realized there was a crack in the water canister and water was dripping out slowly and was actually what caused the issue. And so I realized, I was, one, wrong in getting on my kids, and they weren't the issue there. It was a good lesson, but thinking back on the scenario, I wish I would have handled it differently. I wish I would have calmly talked to them, asked them, hear their hearts, and then pointed out the truth of being careful with water and electricity, that kind of thing. And then also point them to Jesus. Because if I think back about this situation, I didn't point them to Jesus. I sternly got on them, told them to be careful with water when they didn't do anything. It would have been way better discipleship, care, if I were to check in with them, hear their hearts about the situation, if they were part of this or not, and then share about Jesus being living water and how it's dangerous to live apart from the living water. And life is so much more fulfilling if we go to the true source of Jesus being the living water and connecting it to the water on the counter and the yada, yada, yada. And I share all this because I feel like life is so much better for those who walk with God to point their children and each other to Jesus. In the scriptures, in Proverbs chapter 22, I believe it's verse 6, it talks about training your children in the way they ought to go, and they'll never depart from that path. A lot of believers read that verse and interpret it as, if I take my children to church, I don't use that language. If we go to a Sunday service, because we are the church, I can talk about that a different day. If I have them read their Bible, if I make them do this or this with Christianity, that they'll remain believers. And that's not what that verse means. Training up a child in the way they ought to go and they'll never depart from it is more connected to pointing people to God, pointing people to Jesus in all of life, whether it's with water on a counter or our children looking elsewhere for satisfaction and pointing them to Jesus who satisfies all. Or when there's worry or fear, we can point them to Jesus, because we can point anyone to Jesus in a loving way because he is the answer. He is the provider. And that is training our children in the way they ought to go. They're training one another, giving one another Christ in the way we ought to live. And in doing that, it'll help our belief, our thinking be healthier and healthier. And so whether it's water on a counter or feeling alone in a quarantine, Christ is always with us. He promised that to the ends of the earth. And so pray you're encouraged today. Pray that you desire to receive Christ or to grow in your understanding and belief in Jesus. And I hope to be sharing more videos on what it looks like to continue to point all to Jesus. Love you. Hope you're well. and be blessed today. Amen.